The alien warrior woman said, "Kneel." I smiled and said, "No." I was shocked by what she did next. The sky over Zytheria was not kind to strangers. It was a jagged, storm-torn planet with sharp cliffs and rivers of molten metal that glowed under the dim light of its twin suns. Commander Elias Vey adjusted his visor as the magnetic storm crackled around him, the air thick with the scent of ionized metal. He had been sent on a reconnaissance mission to the frontier world, a planet no human had claimed, a planet that many alien species considered dangerous and untamed. Elias had faced harsh environments before, but Zytheria had a reputation that made even seasoned soldiers uneasy. The locals, if one could call them that, were rarely seen, but the legends were enough. A warrior woman who moved like a shadow, striking fear into anyone who opposed her, known simply as Sarathka. Many said she was not just a warrior, but a force of nature, an unrelenting protector of her people, with a code of honor that brooked no disobedience. As he moved along the cliffside, the ground vibrating under his boots with every distant explosion, Elias felt a presence before he saw it. The air seemed heavier, charged with something more than the storm. Then she appeared, Sarathka. Her armor gleamed with a dark iridescence that seemed to drink in the light around her. Her eyes, sharp and piercing, scanned him as if evaluating every detail of his existence. In her hands, a plasma blade hummed softly, a weapon that had ended countless lives, yet here it hovered effortlessly, a silent promise of deadly precision. "Kneel," she commanded, her voice cutting through the storm like a blade. It was not a suggestion. It was an order that brooked no refusal, a test of obedience that most who heard it would accept without thought. Elias, however, did not kneel. He smiled, a small, confident gesture. "No," he said simply. For a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. Sarathka's eyes narrowed, the edge of her blade glowing brighter. Elias could feel the tension, the unspoken threat that a single misstep could cost him his life. Yet he remained calm, standing straight, shoulders squared, looking her directly in the eyes. Few humans had faced her and lived to tell the tale. Fewer still had refused her command, and yet here he was, a mere human defying the might of a warrior whose name alone could topple empires. Sarathka tilted her head, intrigued. Humans were known for courage, yes, but often it bordered on recklessness. This one seemed different. There was no arrogance in his defiance, only a steady calm, a quiet confidence that unsettled her. "Why do you resist?" she asked, her voice softer now, though it still carried the weight of command. "I'm not weak," Elias replied evenly. "I don't kneel to those who haven't earned it." Her lips curved, not in a smile, but in acknowledgement of his audacity. Few had ever spoken to her this way. Most were either terrified or obedient. He was neither. She moved closer, the hum of her blade louder now, resonating with the storm around them. "Do you understand what you risk?" she asked. "One wrong move and I will end you." "I understand," he said. "And I understand you too. You follow a code, you respect strength and honor. I offer both." Her eyes flicked to the surrounding cliffs, the molten rivers below, the storm crackling across the sky. She was assessing, analyzing, weighing every option. For a warrior like her, hesitation was rare, and yet she hesitated now. Elias stepped forward slightly, not in aggression but in controlled confidence. "I am not your enemy unless you make me one. I do not kneel because I do not serve blindly. But I will fight with honor if necessary." Sarathka's hand tightened around her blade. She expected a challenge, a fight, a display of human foolishness. But instead she found something unexpected, a reflection of qualities she valued herself: courage, resolve, and clarity of purpose. "You are unlike any human I have encountered," she said finally, her tone carrying a mix of curiosity and respect. "Most would be cowering by now." "And most would not face you," Elias replied. "But humans are unpredictable. We survive because we adapt, we fight when necessary, and we do not bow unless we believe it is deserved." The warrior woman's eyes softened slightly, though the intensity never left them. "Tell me, human, what makes you so certain that defiance will serve you better than submission?" Elias looked around at the cliffs, at the rivers of molten metal, at the storm tearing through the sky. "Because submission does not earn respect. Defiance, courage, and wisdom do. That is what makes humans strong, even when we are small in numbers or weaker in technology." For the first time, Sarathka paused. Her blade hummed, a low vibration that resonated in the air, but she did not strike. Elias could feel the shift in her stance, the small opening in her otherwise impenetrable demeanor. "Do you wish to die here, human?" she asked, though the edge in her voice was gone. No, he said. I wish to prove that humans are more than you think. That we can fight with honor, that we can inspire respect even from those who fear us. The storm raged, lightning striking near the cliffs, sending sparks of energy into the air. For a moment, it felt as though time itself slowed. Sarathka's hand moved slightly, lowering her blade. Elias held his ground, knowing that one wrong gesture could end him. Then she did something he did not expect. She stepped back completely, the glow of her blade dimming. Interesting, she murmured. You have spirit, human. Few have earned my attention in such a way. Perhaps you are worth more than I initially thought. Elias blinked, surprised by her words. Worth your attention? Yes, she replied, her gaze still sharp but less threatening. You are not like the others. You may survive longer than expected if you prove yourself worthy. The human's chest rose and fell steadily as he processed her words. This was not victory, not yet. But it was acknowledgement, and in a galaxy where humans were considered weak and insignificant, acknowledgement from a warrior like Sarathka was no small thing. Then tell me, human, she said, what will you do next? Elias looked out at the horizon, at the jagged cliffs, at the storm that seemed to rage in tandem with the tension between them. Next, he said, I will survive, I will learn, and if necessary I will fight, but I will not kneel. Not to you, not to anyone, unless I am certain it is deserved. Sarathka studied him, silent for several moments. The storm's noise filled the space between them, but it was no longer threatening. It was almost ceremonial, a backdrop to a meeting of wills. Finally, she nodded slightly, a subtle motion, but one that carried weight. Very well, she said. Then we shall see if humans are as worthy as you claim. For now, live human, survive this storm, and perhaps one day you will show me the strength of your kind. Elias allowed himself a small, triumphant smile, though he remained on guard. This was not friendship. This was not alliance. It was a test, a beginning, and the first step in a journey that would challenge everything he knew about the galaxy and himself. As Sarathka disappeared into the shadows of the cliff, her form melding with the storm, Elias exhaled slowly. He had faced a warrior of legend and lived, not through luck, but through courage, calculation, and understanding. And in that brief encounter, he had done something few humans had ever achieved. He had earned a measure of respect from the galaxy's deadliest fighter. He turned back toward his mission, knowing the path ahead would be dangerous, uncertain, and full of challenges. But he also knew that humans had something few others did: the will to stand, the courage to defy, and the capacity to surprise even the most formidable opponents. And that, he thought, was worth everything. The storm over Scythuria continued to rage, but Elias moved forward, ready for whatever came next, carrying with him the quiet certainty that humans were not to be underestimated. The storm over Scythuria had faded, leaving the sky dark but quiet, the molten rivers below still, glowing like flowing embers. Commander Elias Vey moved carefully along the cliffside, his boots crunching on the jagged rocks. He knew that surviving the storm was only the first part of his challenge. The real test was the warrior he had just faced, Sarathka. He had expected her to attack, to strike without hesitation, yet she had not. Instead, she had studied him, assessed him, and then walked away. Elias could not forget the sharpness in her eyes, the tension that pulsed around her even when she had lowered her blade. He had survived, yes, but he had also sparked something unusual in her, a curiosity, a challenge, perhaps even respect. Elias continued toward the coordinates he had been sent to observe. Suddenly, a shimmer in the air caught his attention. A portal-like ripple opened before him and a hand reached through. Elias froze for a heartbeat, then instinctively raised his weapon. "Lower it," a voice said, calm, controlled, familiar. He blinked. Sarathka stepped through the portal, her blade sheathed now, the aura of deadly force still present but subdued. "You are still alive," she said, almost as a statement of fact rather than surprise. "Good, that means you might be worth something after all." Elias lowered his weapon slowly. "I survived because I had to," he said. "You didn't strike me and I don't think it was luck." She gave a short nod, her eyes scanning the horizon. "Humans are unpredictable, that is what I have learned. And that unpredictability might be useful." "Useful?" Elias asked, wary but intrigued. "I have a challenge for you," Sarathka said. She gestured toward the cliffs, toward the rivers of molten metal below. "A test of your skill, your mind, and your courage. Survive this, and I may consider you an ally instead of an obstacle." Elias studied her carefully. This was no ordinary invitation. There was risk, yes, but there was also opportunity. He nodded. I accept. What is the test? Sarathka pointed to a narrow path along the cliff's edge. That path leads to an observation post controlled by a rogue faction. They do not belong to my people, and they seek to destroy anyone who enters this region. Your task is simple. Get there, gather the information, and return. But you will not be alone. I will be watching, and I will intervene only if absolutely necessary. Elias' heart raced, but he kept his expression calm. Understood. The journey was treacherous. The narrow path wound along cliffs that dropped into rivers of molten metal. Every step required careful calculation. Every movement demanded focus. Elias used all of his training, his experience, and his natural human adaptability to navigate the path safely. Yet the rogue faction was not idle. Drones and automated sentries activated as soon as they detected him, weapons trained on his movement. Elias smiled slightly to himself. Humans thrived under pressure. He leaped across gaps, slid under laser grids, and used the jagged rocks as cover. His mind worked quickly, calculating angles, timing, and strategies in a way that the rogue faction had not anticipated. From the shadows above, Sarathka observed. She could have intervened at any moment, but she let him struggle and improvise. She wanted to see if humans could adapt when faced with danger. When Elias finally reached the observation post, he quickly accessed the alien system, downloading critical information about the rogue faction's movements, resources, and weaknesses. It was the kind of intelligence that could change the balance of power in the sector. But even as he worked, alarms blared. He had been detected. Sentries closed in, weapons raised, ready to eliminate him. Elias glanced around, his mind racing. Then he remembered something his father had taught him. Survival often required creativity, not just courage. Using a reflective panel from the observation post, he redirected the sentry's lasers, creating confusion. Then, using a small energy pulse, he disabled the security system long enough to make his escape. Sarathka's eyes followed every move. She allowed herself a small, approving smile. Humans were clever, yes, not just brave, but clever. That was a rare combination. The return journey was no less dangerous. The rogue faction sent reinforcements, faster and more numerous, but Elias was ready. He used every trick he knew, from misdirection to leveraging the terrain to his advantage. His human intuition, quick thinking, and courage combined to turn what seemed like certain death into a calculated, controlled escape. At one point, a massive energy blast erupted from a cliffside sentry, sending rocks and molten debris into the air. Elias dove instinctively, rolling across the rocks as the blast missed him by mere inches. Sarathka stepped forward from a hidden ledge, her blade flashing as she struck down a pursuing drone. Side by side, they fought, humans and alien warrior moving in an unspoken rhythm, their actions complementing one another. For the first time, Elias realized that their encounter was evolving. What had begun as a challenge, a test of survival and defiance, was now becoming a partnership. He was learning her moves, anticipating them, and she was learning his unpredictability, his resourcefulness. Together, they were more than either could be alone. Finally, after a grueling journey, they reached a plateau where the storm of the day before had given way to a clear view of the alien territory below. Elias handed her the data he had collected. Here, he said. Everything you need to know. Sarathka scanned the information, her eyes narrowing in concentration. After a moment, she looked at him, her expression unreadable. You have done well, human. Not only have you survived, but you have proven that your species is adaptable, clever, and brave. Elias allowed himself a small smile. I told you humans are not weak. You have more than proven that, she said. Few creatures earn my respect in a single day. You have earned it not through submission, but through action, intelligence, and courage. For a moment, the tension between them eased. The warrior who had once demanded obedience now regarded him as an equal, at least in potential. It was not friendship yet, but it was acknowledgement, a rare and valuable thing in the galaxy. Elias looked out over the horizon, the glow of molten rivers casting a warm light across the cliffside. So what now? He asked. Do we part ways? Sarathka shook her head. No. There is work to be done. The rogue faction will not wait for us to rest. They are dangerous, unpredictable, and ruthless. You have shown me that humans are not to be underestimated. I believe together we can accomplish what alone we could not. Elias nodded. Then we fight. Together, their alliance, tentative but powerful, began to take shape. They moved down the cliffside, navigating the terrain with a mix of human ingenuity and alien precision. Every step reinforced their understanding of one another, a combination of skill, strategy, and trust forming naturally through shared danger. As night fell over Scytheria, the two stood atop a ridge, overlooking the territory of the rogue faction. The stars above were bright, the twin suns, light gone for now, leaving only the calm of the night and the distant glow of molten rivers. Elias felt a surge of hope. Humanity was often underestimated, dismissed as weak or insignificant, yet here he stood, recognized by a legendary warrior as a worthy partner. Sarathka's voice broke the silence. Humans are unpredictable and yet admirable. I have underestimated you before, Elias. No longer, Elias smiled, feeling a sense of pride and purpose that went beyond survival. Then let's show the galaxy what humans can do, he said. For the first time, he realized that the encounter with Sarathka was not just about proving himself. It was about proving humanity, that even when outnumbered, outgunned, or underestimated, humans could rise. Courage, intelligence, and resolve were weapons just as powerful as any plasma blade or alien technology. Together, they prepared to descend into the territory below. The rogue faction would not know what hit them. Humans and aliens working side by side, combining skill and unpredictability, strategy and courage. The battle ahead would be difficult, but Elias no longer feared it. He had survived the storm, faced a legendary warrior, and emerged not just alive, but respected. And now, humanity had an ally in the galaxy's most formidable fighters. As they moved toward the first signs of the rogue faction's outpost, Elias glanced at Sarathka. She met his gaze, her eyes sharp, but not with threat, now with understanding. You are ready, she said, and so is your kind. Elias nodded. Then let's make sure they never forget it. The night on Scytheria was alive with danger, but for the first time, Elias felt the full measure of human strength. Courage, defiance, and the ability to inspire respect even in the hearts of the galaxy's greatest warriors. And in that quiet moment, atop a cliff with molten rivers below and stars above, he knew this was only the beginning of humanity's story among the stars. The rogue faction's outpost loomed ahead, a jagged cluster of metal towers and energy shields rising from the rocky terrain. Smoke and fire drifted from its damaged sections, evidence that they had already faced attacks from unknown forces. Elias and Sarathka crouched on a ridge above, surveying the area. The glow from Scytheria's molten rivers cast flickering shadows across the landscape, giving it a surreal, almost dangerous beauty. This is where it begins, Sarathka said, her voice calm but edged with anticipation. You have learned quickly, human. Now you must act decisively. Elias adjusted the straps on his utility harness and checked the weapons he carried. Not just firepower, but clever tools, magnetic grapples, smoke dispersers, and compact explosives, each chosen for improvisation and strategic advantage. He glanced at Sarathka, noting the fluid confidence in her stance. Her armor reflected the dim light of the planet, and her blade was ready, humming softly like a living thing. Together, they made a striking pair, human ingenuity and alien precision united by a shared goal. He nodded, let's move. They descended carefully toward the outpost, using the jagged rocks as cover. Sentinels patrolled the perimeter, scanning the area with red, glowing sensors. Elias motioned to Sarathka, and she responded with a slight nod, stepping into shadows as if part of them. Humans were adaptable, yes, but so were Sarathka's kind, and together their movements became almost seamless, complementing each other's strengths. A pair of sentinels approached their position. Elias' pulse quickened, but he remained calm. Timing, precision, and creative thinking were his allies. He activated a small pulse emitter, temporarily jamming the sensors, and Sarathka moved forward, disabling the sentinels with a swift, fluid strike of her blade. No sound but a faint hiss as they collapsed. Impressive, she whispered. You think quickly. That is what makes humans dangerous. Elias smiled faintly. And unpredictable. They pressed onward, climbing the rocky outcroppings and staying low to avoid detection. The outpost was vast, more complex than their reconnaissance data had suggested. Towers interconnected with energy bridges, defensive turrets scanning continuously, and robotic guards patrolling systematically. Yet Elias noticed patterns, slight delays in patrol rotations, blind spots in the energy shields, weaknesses that could be exploited. Here, he said softly, pointing to a narrow bridge connecting two towers. We can cross here, but the sensors are close. I'll need a distraction. Sarathka's eyes gleamed. Then create one human, show me your strategy. Elias grinned under his visor. Using a small magnetic pulse, he triggered a localized short circuit in a nearby turret. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and guards rushed toward the noise. He and Sarathka slipped across the bridge, moving like shadows, their steps silent but precise. Inside the main tower, the control room glowed with holographic displays showing the rogue faction's operations. Elias quickly began downloading critical data, ship movements, weapon schematics, supply lines. Every second counted. Outside, more guards approached, alerted by the earlier distraction. Sarathka stood by the door, ready. Hurry, she said, her tone calm but firm. Time is short. Elias' fingers flew over the console. The data transferred faster than he expected. When the download completed, he extracted a small device to store the information. Just as he did, the door behind them burst open and a squad of rogue soldiers entered, weapons raised. Cover me, Elias said. Sarathka moved without hesitation. Her blade arced through the air, striking with lethal precision, disabling weapons and forcing the attackers back. Elias utilized the chaos, firing non-lethal energy pulses to stun and confuse the rest, making their advance slower and disorganized. His strategies were not brute force, they were clever, using the enemy's own patterns against them. Not bad, Sarathka said, slashing down the last intruder. You adapt well under pressure. Elias caught his breath. I told you humans survive because we adapt. They left the control room quickly, moving toward an escape route Elias had spotted during the reconnaissance. The exterior walls of the tower were lined with energy shields, but he calculated the timing perfectly. Using a small energy manipulator, he created a temporary breach, allowing them to pass through undetected. As they reached the outer courtyard, the rogue faction's reinforcements arrived. Larger ships hovered above, dropping soldiers onto the ground. The odds were overwhelming. Elias' heart raced, but he did not panic. This was exactly the kind of situation where humans thrived. Creativity, courage, and unpredictability, the traits that made them feared in small numbers, could still win the day. Sarathka surveyed the situation. We fight together, she said. Use your mind, human, as you have before. Elias nodded. He set small energy charges on the ground, using them to create smoke and light diversions. He drew the soldiers into traps, exploiting the terrain, forcing them to move into positions where Sarathka could strike with maximum effect. The battlefield became a dance of strategy and skill, human improvisation guiding alien precision. Time and again, Elias anticipated the enemy's moves, predicting patterns, creating openings, and forcing them into vulnerable positions. Sarathka moved alongside him, lethal and graceful, a storm of energy and steel, taking down anyone who threatened him. Together, they were unstoppable. Finally, they reached the edge of the courtyard, near the cliffside where molten rivers flowed below. Elias activated a final device, sending a pulse that disabled the outpost's energy shields temporarily. Sarathka leaped across the molten terrain with agility that seemed almost impossible, drawing attention and clearing the path. Elias followed, using grappling hooks and precise timing to avoid falling into the fiery rivers below. They reached the cliff's edge, breathing heavily, their armor scorched but intact. Below them, the outpost burned and sparks flew from damaged towers. The rogue faction had underestimated them both, humans and aliens together. Sarathka looked at Elias, her expression a mix of respect and admiration. You have proven your kind is not to be underestimated, she said. Not only brave but intelligent, that combination is rare. Elias allowed himself a small, triumphant smile. We are adaptable. That is what makes humans strong. We survive, we think, and we fight with purpose. She nodded. And yet you could have died at any moment. That is the risk of courage, and humans embrace it fully. He looked at the horizon, where the twin suns would soon rise, casting a pale light over the rugged terrain. Then we show the galaxy what humans are capable of, not just to survive, but to thrive, to earn respect even from the greatest warriors. Sarathka's eyes glinted. Then our work is not done. The rogue faction will rebuild, others will come. But now I know that humans are more than what I believed. You have inspired me, Elias. That is no small achievement. Elias nodded. and you have taught me that courage alone is not enough. Strategy, precision, and partnership make us stronger. They stood together on the cliff, overlooking the ruins of the outpost below. For the first time, Elias felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Humans, often dismissed as weak, underestimated, and small, had proven their value not through numbers or raw power, but through ingenuity, courage, and moral strength. Sarathka extended her hand. Elias hesitated for a heartbeat, then shook it firmly. In that simple gesture, an unspoken alliance was sealed, not just between two individuals, but between humanity and a species that once viewed them as insignificant. The first rays of the twin suns touched the molten rivers, and Elias felt the warmth of possibility. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, but humans had already shown that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage, intelligence, and honor could carve a place in the stars. "This is just the beginning," Elias said quietly, looking at the warrior beside him. Sarathka nodded. "Yes, and now the galaxy will remember the human who did not kneel, the human who fought, thought, and survived. Your kind is not weak, Elias. Never again will they see humans as mere obstacles." Together they turned back toward the path that would lead them home, or perhaps toward the next battle. Either way, they moved with purpose, their partnership forged in fire, courage, and mutual respect. The galaxy waited, full of danger, opportunity, and the unknown. And humans, with all their unpredictability, had already begun to leave their mark. Elias felt a spark of determination deep inside him. The storms of Zytheria had tested him, the warrior Sarathka had challenged him, and the rogue faction had tried to destroy him. Yet he stood here unbowed, stronger and wiser. This was humanity's story, unfolding in real time, a story of defiance, courage, and honor. And in the galaxy's vast expanse, humans would be remembered, not as weaklings, but as a force capable of inspiring respect, forming alliances, and shaping destinies. As they walked into the distance, the molten rivers still glowing below, Elias knew that the journey ahead would be full of danger. But he also knew this. As long as humans stood, as long as they dared to defy, to think, and to act with courage, they would never be underestimated again. And that knowledge, that certainty, was more powerful than any weapon in the universe. The twin suns of Zytheria had risen fully, casting a warm glow over the rugged landscape. The rivers of molten metal shimmered like flowing gold, and the air was thick with the scent of minerals and heat. Commander Elias Vey adjusted his gear and surveyed the terrain below. The rogue faction's outpost was smoldering, its towers half-collapsed, but Elias knew that destruction here did not mean the threat was gone. In the galaxy, enemies were rarely eliminated permanently. They adapted, rebuilt, and returned. Beside him, Sarathka moved with silent grace, her blade now sheathed, though the hum of energy lingered as if her weapon remembered its power. "The rogue faction will not stay defeated," she said, her voice low but steady. "They will regroup, perhaps stronger than before. If we are to survive, we must anticipate their moves before they even begin." Elias nodded, understanding the weight of her words. The galaxy was vast, but danger was never far away. Humans were clever and adaptable, yes, but even the cleverest could falter if they did not act with foresight. "Then we strike first," he said. "We gather intel, plan carefully, and prevent them from regaining strength." Sarathka regarded him for a moment, her sharp eyes assessing not just his words, but the determination behind them. "Your kind is bold," she said. "Few would plan an offensive so soon after surviving a battle. Most would hide, recover, wait. But humans, you take risks because you believe in action, in the strength of your mind as well as your body." Elias smiled faintly. "We survive by thinking, by adapting. Brute strength alone rarely wins the day." They moved through the rocky terrain, keeping to the shadows and avoiding patrols. The rogue faction had sent small scouting parties to check the damage, unaware that the pair observing them were not ordinary enemies. Elias' eyes scanned every detail, the placement of guards, the timing of patrols, the weaknesses in the partially repaired defenses. Every piece of information would be critical. "This is impressive," Sarathka murmured. "You notice patterns that others would miss." "Humans are indeed unpredictable, and yet you create predictability from chaos. That is your strength." Elias glanced at her. "We turn challenges into advantage. That is how we survive." Hours passed as they gathered intelligence, moving silently through dangerous terrain. They discovered that the rogue faction had begun recruiting mercenaries from other systems, preparing to rebuild the outpost and expand its influence. Elias recorded everything on a compact device, each piece of data a key to understanding their enemies' future moves. As night fell, the duo reached a vantage point overlooking a valley where the rogue faction had begun assembling troops. Hundreds of soldiers, armed with advanced weaponry, moved in formation. Drones hovered above, scanning for threats, while energy towers monitored the area. The scale of their adversaries was greater than Elias had expected. "We cannot confront them head-on," he said quietly. "Not yet. We need strategy, precision, and the element of surprise." Sarathka nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Then we strike in the way humans often do best, unexpectedly, intelligently, and with courage that inspires." Elias studied the valley. "We create diversions, isolate their forces, and use terrain to our advantage. You and I move as one, each anticipating the other's actions. That is how we succeed." The plan took shape quickly. They would split the enemy forces using smoke charges, holographic decoys, and timed energy pulses. Sarathka's speed and combat skill would take down high-value targets, while Elias used ingenuity to manipulate the battlefield. Every move required precise timing, and any mistake could cost them their lives. As the first signs of the attack unfolded, the rogue faction reacted exactly as Elias had predicted. Soldiers rushed toward diversions, energy shields misfired due to manipulated circuits, and chaos spread through their ranks. Sarathka moved with lethal efficiency, striking down the most dangerous adversaries, her blade a blur of light and deadly precision. Elias, relying on strategy and clever devices, outmaneuvered the remaining forces, using the terrain and environmental hazards to turn their strength against them. Molten rivers served as barriers, narrow ridges became choke points, and the rogue faction's own energy towers were redirected to limit their movements. At one point, a massive squad attempted to flank them. Elias quickly rigged a small explosive near a cliffside, creating a landslide that separated the enemies. Sarathka used the opening to leap into their midst, neutralizing the remaining threat. Their coordination was seamless, an unspoken rhythm formed from mutual respect and understanding. Hours of battle passed, but the tide had shifted completely. The rogue faction's forces were disorganized, their morale shattered, and their leadership neutralized. Elias and Sarathka stood atop a ridge, overlooking the valley, victorious yet aware that the war was far from over. "You have done well," Sarathka said, her voice calm, though the exhaustion in her stance was evident. "You lead with your mind as well as your courage." "That is rare, and you fight with precision as well as honor," Elias replied. "We make a good team." Sarathka considered this. "Yes, humans are indeed strong, not just physically, but in thought, strategy, and spirit. I have underestimated your kind before, but no longer. Today, you have earned not only my respect, but my trust." Elias allowed himself a small smile. "Then let's ensure the galaxy knows what humans are capable of, not just surviving, but thriving, not just fighting, but winning with intelligence and courage." The next morning, they returned to the remains of the outpost to secure any remaining intelligence and rescue prisoners. Humans, though often underestimated, were capable of incredible resourcefulness, and Elias demonstrated that fully. Using his knowledge of the terrain and the rogue faction's patterns, he navigated through remaining defenses, disarming traps and freeing captives without unnecessary confrontation. Sarathka followed closely, her movements a combination of alertness and calculated restraint. She had learned from him just as he had learned from her. Together, they were more than a single force. They were a symbol of what collaboration between species could achieve. As they left the outpost, Elias paused to look back at the ruins. The rogue faction would rebuild, yes, but the foundation had been shaken irreversibly. Their morale broken, their leadership disrupted, and their operations exposed, they would think twice before challenging humans or Sarathka again. "Humans are underestimated often," Sarathka said quietly. "Yet they rise when others falter. I have seen that now, and I will not forget it." Elias nodded. "That is who we are. Courage, adaptability, and intelligence, that is humanity." As they moved toward their ship, ready to leave Zytheria, they were greeted by a new dawn. The twin suns rose once more, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson. For a moment the world seemed peaceful, though both knew that peace was always temporary in the galaxy. Elias felt a sense of pride, not just for himself, but for humanity as a whole. Humans were often dismissed, underestimated, and even mocked by more advanced civilizations. Yet here they were, proving their worth through courage, strategy, and determination. Sarathka glanced at him, a rare softness in her expression. "You have changed my perception of humans, Elias, not through words, but through action. That is far more powerful." "And you have changed my perception of aliens like you," Elias replied. "Strength alone is not enough. Honor, discipline, and strategy make all the difference. Together, we are stronger." They boarded the ship, its engines humming softly as it lifted off the planet. Below, Zythuria's molten rivers glowed, a reminder of the challenges they had faced and survived. Elias watched as the landscape fell away beneath them, feeling the weight of victory and responsibility. Humanity had earned respect here, in a place where they were once considered weak and inconsequential. Sarathka stood beside him, silent for a moment, then spoke. "The galaxy is vast, and many will not believe what you have achieved here, but they will learn eventually. And when they do, humans will no longer be underestimated." Elias nodded, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. "Then let's make sure they remember, not just the humans who fought, but the humans who think, adapt, and rise above impossible odds." The ship moved through space, leaving Zythuria behind. Ahead lay unknown challenges, new enemies, and opportunities to prove humanity's worth once more. Elias knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was full of danger, yes, but also full of possibilities. And humans, with their courage, intelligence, and indomitable spirit, would seize them all. In the quiet of the ship, Elias reflected on everything that had happened. The storm on Zythuria, the encounter with Sarathka, the rogue faction, and the victories they had achieved. Each moment had been a test of human strength, creativity, and courage. Each challenge had shown that humans were more than mere survivors. They were innovators, strategists, and warriors in their own right. Sarathka broke the silence. "You have done well, Elias." Today, humans and aliens fought together, not as enemies, but as equals. That is rare in this galaxy. Elias allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. "Then let's continue to show the galaxy what that means. Humans are not just survivors. We are a force to be respected, and we will never bow unless we choose to." The twin suns of Zythuria were far behind them now, and the stars ahead promised new adventures, new battles, and new opportunities. But Elias felt ready for all of it. Humanity had proven itself, and the story was only beginning. As the ship glided through the endless expanse of space, Elias and Sarathka stood together on the bridge, united by mutual respect and the understanding that their combined strength was greater than the sum of its parts. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, humans were already making their mark, not through domination or fear, but through courage, intelligence, and the ability to rise when others underestimated them. And that mark would never be forgotten.